Yes, sir.
Hey, State of Mind with Coach E.
What's up with it, man? Y'all know what time it is. This your favorite coach, Coach E. And man, I'm just sitting here vibing, getting my thoughts together, man, because today, today's it's one of them episodes, man, where it's personal. I was supposed to do this episode like 2 or 3 days ago, but I have to be mindful of some of the things I say. And this really it hits home because I'm a father, and I'm really saddened by what's going on out here today, man. At one point I was a product of it. All my homeboys, we all come from, certain troubled backgrounds, whether it was your parents or whether it was just a community you lived in or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Gangs, dope, the dope game or whatever, it doesn't matter. At some point we was all products of it, so I get it. But it's sad because when you look at what's going on today, it's a lot of didn't have tools. I'm watching these young people just, pass away, and they get younger and younger. And it's sad because the demographics of things are starting to change. Banging in Little Rock, or just even gang banging anywhere, period. Yes, it's senseless, and a lot of people would say that was a horrible time, and it was, but it's like, when you look at today's, it's just so much going on that doesn't even make sense. It's just sad, man. Well, I don't know, man, but so let's get into it, man. So I recently made a status talking about parents paying a certain amount of money to put their kids in personal training, and their kids have issues with handling their anger and dealing with peer pressure and just different things. So I received a lot of feedback from that, man. Positive feedback, a lot of love. People shared it, commented, and I thank everybody who interacted with me on that status, man, because that was really on my heart. But today I want to talk about the shift in our culture. And when I say culture, this doesn't really, I don't really think it has anything to do with color. And, our culture is more of a black thing, I guess. But, you seeing it across the table now in all aspects, in all colors, ethnicities, whatever you want to say. So let's get to this. Point blank period. Respect is no longer a value trait in our community. People don't even care to respect or teach respect. People don't care anything about that anymore. It's rare that you find parents who actually teach their kids to be respectful kids. Sometimes as parents, we get so caught up in working and trying to provide a life that we didn't have for our kids that sometimes a lot of our kids fall through the crack. But the difference now is the music has changed, the community love and love, the community, the expectations of the community and what is and what isn't allowed. It has changed the dynamics. The big mamas, the grandmas, they're disappearing. It's a lot of things that's no longer in place that used to pick up the slack when the parent wasn't able to do or teach certain things. You get what I'm saying. I'm watching these young people die at very, very young ages. And it's saddening because even when you go back to the 90s when gangbanging was at its peak, and for other areas and states, the 70s and 80s or whatever, when I look at that, it was still rules to this. That doesn't make it right, but there were still rules. There were still it was just laws to this. So as long as you stay within them laws and rules and you stayed away from those areas, it was certain things you didn't have to worry about. But now in today's society, there's no sets really. There's no territories. There's no there isn't. I mean, there isn't any rules. I'm seeing kids now who would have been scary or who would have got ran out of the game when I was a kid, even doing things now. Like even if you look at the people, the population of the penitentiary, you seeing a lot of kids who would have never survived or even went to the penitentiary, going and coming to from the penitentiary or to the penitentiary. Today's music, in my opinion, plays a heavy influence on the way things are done now. And the reason why I say that is because when I was coming up, gangs, gang activity, violence, and all those things were easier to identify and easier to navigate around when I was a kid. Now, gangs, violence, drugs, certain mindsets, certain clothes, certain looks were limited to certain areas. Now you're starting to see the presence of all these things in suburban areas, you know, just great areas that we used to dream of moving to. Schools who had no history of these things. Now that might play a part in school choice and parents, trying to put their kids in better opportunities. But at the same time, a lot of the kids who are from those communities are even dressing, talking, carrying guns, and just doing these type of things. So when you look at these things and there's no respect being planted into these kids or enforced in them, it's a disaster. When you look at a lot of these kids who are getting killed or losing their lives to like just senseless decisions, just crazy decisions, a lot of these kids come from great backgrounds. I know kids right now in Sherwood who swear they're the biggest gangster. Now, keep in mind, I'm not knocking them far as, because I know some people gonna get offended. It don't matter where you from. But what I'm saying is, if your mom is a nurse, your dad's a lawyer, or you live in this big community with big houses and ain't no violence there, you're not from the struggle, there's no reason for you to be acting like you're this big thug. But you seeing that now. You got kids hollering out young NBA young boy gang, like the 4KT and these 3-letter gangs. Like this is spreading like wildfires. Parents, we have to do better. We really have to do better. We're in a time now to where we no longer welcome the community to say anything to your child. We put limits on what the coach can and can't say to the child or the mentor. We're putting a lot of limitations on what a teacher can do. And we wonder why, and I'm not saying they're right, but we wonder why you're seeing a lot of teachers starting to step up and jump on these kids. But now there are cases where teachers are wrong, but parents, they're tired. Coaches are tired. You have to understand that if you don't want to put up with your kids, other people don't want to put up with them. So when you start neglecting your child and allowing the music and their homeboys to raise them, you can't expect people to accept that. You get what I'm saying? People are no longer playing with kids no more. We're going to have to do a better job as a community to start bringing back these values. But if I feel like I can't talk to your child, if I feel like I can't step in and tell them they wrong for cussing and getting on their butt about certain things, then it's like, hey, these kids is out here. I'm not going to say anything because I don't feel like getting into it with you over there. But parents, if you see your child is on Instagram doing familiar rap industry gang signs and or you see in other things, if your child is on Instagram flashing $5,000-$10,000 and hanging with the wrong crowd, say something. Be a parent. At the end of the day, we have to get out of this sisterly and brotherly thing that we have going with these kids because we want them to like us and we don't want them to be mad at us and fall out with us. We have to bring real deal hardcore parenting back. And when I say hardcore, I ain't talking about chaining them up and beating them. I'm talking about just like get on their butt. Don't be scared to look through their phone. Uh, don't be scared to tell them no. The man they say yes sir, no sir. Don't be scared to put them in some type of positive program. But parents don't care no more. You know, we let them dictate, you know what I'm saying, how we gonna take care of them. Well, we know they want Jordans and this and that, we gonna do it. But when the last time you didn't held them accountable for something or taught them, try to teach them responsibility. And I get it. Some parents gotta work 14, 15 hours a day. So you know it's hard. But at the end of the day, people back then worked 12, 14, 15 hours a day. And regardless of how that child turned out, people still had respect back then. No matter how bad we were as kids, we still respected adults. We might have had rough spurts and you know, we might have did bad things, but when the elderly came around, or the pastors and ministers in the community, it was an immediate change. Or when our coaches and our mentors told us something, it was immediate change. Now these kids just don't be tripping. It's no secret that you watching the Mikey Williams and the Inami Bates kid. You watching all these figures, these rappers, the G Moneys, and I can just keep naming just rappers on and on, how they're dying now because kids don't respect and fear nothing anymore. I feel like we're failing as parents as a whole and as a community of teaching these kids respect and holding them accountable. We let so much slide now. We letting our kids just get in tune and attached to things that they're not mentally ready for. One thing I noticed about the world and social media and just the entertainment business, they're good at when you slowly just force things on people. Slowly, it's easier for it to become acceptable over a time period. It becomes normal. See, they figured it out. You don't just drop things on people heavy at one point. You know, we'll reject it. But when you just slowly, you know, just feed it to us, you know, step by step, it becomes acceptable. Week in and week out in the gyms, I'm starting to hear kids at younger ages start cussing. And they'll cuss in front of you like they ain't tripping because they know you're not going to say nothing to them. But the problem is if I say something to him, he going to come back and tell his parent, and then I get into it. Now I'm into it with the parent. And, man, I don't have time for that. People are shooting people now because you're saying something to their kid. Parents, we have to stop that. We can't be scared for other people to hold our kids accountable for what they're doing. Now, of course, it ain't no good for me to start beating on your child. But I shouldn't feel like I'm finna lose my life because I told your son to stop cussing. You know, any parent who's cool with that, and any parent who has the I'm gonna protect mine first mentality, no right or wrong, you're the problem. You're the problem. I'm not saying don't protect your child, but if another adult come to you and say, hey man, you know, your son was over there saying bitch ass nigga, and you know, chastising this other kid and just, you know, bullying him. And the first thing you say is, well, my son don't do this, and I appreciate if you just you're the problem. Kids shouldn't have this much freedom to move how they want to move. Parents, we have to do better. We have to start moving as a community and as a unit to get these kids on the right track. Because what's going to happen is all these AAU tournaments that you're going to anyway, all this money you dishing out, all these personal trainers that you investing in, it's not going to amount to nothing because the NBA can't use them, or, you know, they're going to get in trouble in high school. They're going to drop out anyway. I mean, and it's a good possibility they're going to end up in jail or they're going to end up dead. I mean, how you want to do this? Our kids are getting worse. They're dying younger. They're like, man, I'm talking about like you got some real dead kids out here who are really doing some grimy things that even when times was hard, that certain age group didn't do. When you heard about it, you was shocked because like that was rare. Like kids now they don't fear losing their life. And it's sad in the city of Little Rock, even though this goes on everywhere. I'm talking about the city of the city of Little Rock, that everybody wants to cry at a funeral. Everybody wants to talk about the good times they had with these kids. Everybody want to make long Facebook posts, and everybody want to even help pay for a funeral, but nobody wants to stand up and help pay for the prevention of these funerals. If we will all come together and create something that'll be, even if it's short term, sports wise, but long term, mentorship wise, we will be all right. But these kids have nothing else to do but to depend on each other, the music and all these other things, and just live and die in this culture. And the culture killing them right now because nobody wants to grow up and be LeBron James anymore. It sounds good because it's something to do. But, man, a lot of these kids eat, breathe, sleep, dress, all these things like the NBA young boy. They're idolizing these young men who means them no well. Little Rock, we have to do better. There has to be some facilities or even churches, the uses of your gyms, community leaders and all that. Everybody want to jump in the camera after kids die and give these long speeches for personal gain. That's my personal opinion. But why ain't nobody jumping in the camera and trying to figure this out? I don't understand how churches have all these gyms available, but it's always talking about money. Money. Man, a lot of these churches be having $400,000 or $500,000 in the bank. Your light bill being an extra $200-$300 a month is not gonna hurt anything. Hey, on the cool, sometimes you open up these doors and start establishing these programs. What will help you get more members? City officials. We want to open up all these other things, which will be good for the city. I get it. I don't understand how everything works. But what I'm saying is I know your job is to run the city. So, of course, it's to y'all, there's something in the background that makes sense for the different things you open it up. But we have nothing in the city for the kids on a larger scale. We don't. We have little programs here and there, and every now and then I hear people talk about different grants for this, and that, but they're not being made known. We have to take a stand and offer these kids something to do in place of whatever it is they're doing. We have to bring back the respect and to our culture. If we don't change nothing else, we have to bring back the respect. What are we gonna do as a culture, as a society, as a community, as a city, state, country? What are we doing in our inner cities to attract these kids? Implementing a program is not always just enough. You have to understand that in order for you to be able to run a successful program, you have to figure out what attract these kids. I'm going in and out of a lot of gyms where there's no air, and these are city-funded programs. Gyms, church gyms, boys and girls clubs, no air. And I had this conversation with one of my good friends. They was like, well, the air shouldn't be important, but I was saying it is, because when you want to do something on a major scale, you might get those kids in there the first time, but when you start bringing in kids and doing basketball camps or whatever, the first thing they're going to complain about is height. So what I'm saying is, if our job is to attract the new era kid, you do have to have things up to certain standards and up to par on certain things to keep them, because until you reach them, it's about what you're doing to keep them. I really want to challenge the city to figure out something that doesn't just involve them throwing something together or going to get a big name who really doesn't, really care, just so they can say, oh, yeah, well, we had this program and he was such and such, it was over. Do you remember? No, it doesn't work like that. It has to be so much more, because we can sit here and get on TV and talk about, oh, this is just so senseless, and we increased the police presence. No, that's not how that works. They're out there because they have nothing else to do on a regular. You get what I'm saying? We have to find things to do to involve our youth. It has to be some type of Monday and Friday, 8 to 5 or whatever. I'm talking about on a larger scale, not just 2 nights a week for 1 hour. I don't know. And yes, I'm not saying there's nothing out there, but we have got in such a survival type mode that a lot of people are just doing things to the extent of where they can just say they got this going, they're getting their grant money or whatever, and they're just pushing forward. They're really not trying to do anything on a larger scale. It's too much of a headache. They, they in a sweet spot. It's no gamble, no risk. But I'm saying, like, who's actually going to step up and actually try to put something together where we can bring our youth together and get the ball going. I'm not saying that we're going to save everybody. I know we're not, but we're going to save some people. We got to get it together. AAU coaches. I watch more AAU coaches fight over who the best program, trying to steal kids from each other. That kid played for me last, and all this. Like, who cares? At the end of the day, we should be able to come together and figure out what we can do to help these kids. Like, straight up, we can't even get a circuit together. And it's like, yeah, you can say, well, my AAU program, but it's like, man, at the end of the day, AAU only benefits a certain amount of kids. There's maybe 3 or 4 great programs in the state. And if you're not good enough to make it on that team, you asked out. It is what it is, because other programs don't mess with other programs. We haven't figured out that AAU is about creating opportunity for the city and not just your organization. Everybody is so big on the state, my bad. Everybody's so big on trying to prove they the best and argue about who on the EYCL and who ain't on the EYBL, who on who on the Under Armour circuit, who really is, who on Rise, who ain't, who on Nike, who on Reebok, like Adidas. Who cares? Because at the end of the day, it's all for personal glory. We have to do better. People are so worried about building just what they got going on for personal gain that they forget that there was a bigger picture in the beginning, and there still is. I read all the statuses, man, you should do this and do that and do that. Man, like, nobody cares about whether you should or shouldn't go out of town, or whether should and should. Like, how do we help these kids? Like, people are so big on trying to hot side on who's the best coach and this and that, we'll use these kids for personal gain to get our glory and make our organization straight. Then when they age out, you don't really talk to them no more unless they become a success story. I've never seen an organization brag on how many engineers, how many administrators they had come out their program. I've never seen a program brag about. Now, if it happened, okay, cool. But we're talking about on a regular basis. Nobody brags on how many pastors, how many just anything positive outside of if they went to the NFL or the NBA. Nobody brags about that. Nobody. But everybody brags about, my program got more players in the NFL than yours. My program got more players in the NBA. And it's like, man, y'all get so caught up in your self-righteousness and your own personal gain that y'all forgot, man, like, this is really bigger than just the 11 kids you got on the field and the 5 players you got on the court. Like, we have to do better. All these coaches groups with y'all going back and forth and playing little childish games, just all the little stuff you do. It's a lot of situations and scenarios that I can paint, but I don't want to make this personal because I don't have no stake in the game. But we got to cut that out. You get what I'm saying? How many of y'all actually brought in some type of therapist to talk to your kids? Like me, I have a 501c3, so I'm able to maneuver. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but I'm saying when you actually take care of business and getting certain things, you're able to bring in different things, so and help them write it off and be able to present to you more different opportunities. So when is the last time anybody brought in like a therapist to talk to their kids, or just different, a variety of things that help these kids cope and help them be positive? How many of y'all brought in other coaches, to talk to these kids and tell them what they're looking for? We're not. We're just winging it, and we got too much pride to come together and actually put our best foot forward as a community to help these kids. This shouldn't come down to this kid is only special if he can go to Arkansas. See, y'all like to brag about that. But how many kids' lives have you saved? How many kids have you straighten out from the going down the wrong path? Now, I'm not denying that some of y'all have, because, I mean, things, I mean, that comes with it. But I'm saying, long term wise, let's talk about how this being deeper than basketball and football or soccer or whatever. We should be putting in these kids' head that you are so much more than just an athlete. Everything I taught you was to make you a better man or a better young lady. Everything I taught you was prepare you for the real world. Yes, I'm glad that it benefited you to go to college and play the sport that I taught you as a coach, but I'm also here as a mentor to prepare you for life. I really wish we can get back to where we preparing them to be husbands and mothers and wives and fathers. Like, who's bragging about that? You rarely hear people talk about, well, I got 6 kids coming out of my program who turned out to be wonderful fathers. They didn't make it to the league, but he's a broker of his real estate company. He has 3 beautiful kids. You get what I'm saying? We never talk about that. Our community is failing these kids. The music is gaining more power. We're starting to let the phones and the TV raise our kids. We have to get out of that point to where we realize that being the best parent, the best mentor, the best coach don't always mean that you're gonna make the popular decision. One thing about being a man is you have to be comfortable knowing that sometimes you're not gonna be the favorite. But it's about knowing what's the best decision. I mean, it goes to coaching. Sometimes the decision that you're going to make or the play you're going to call is not always going to be popular with your coaching staff or some of the players. But when you know it's going to work, you stand on it. You get what I'm saying? But we have to do better. I even think about like the Ja Morants and things like that. We're so concerned about kids blowing up and becoming these great rich superstars, and we want them to be able to keep us around and do for us and give back, that we won't say what needs to be said. We'll just let them move and do the things they want to do. Then when they end up dead or they end up in prison and they lose it all, then it's like, yeah, man, I seen what he was doing, da-da-da. But it's too late. It's too late. We have to go back to being real men and leading our young men in this society and saying things. But once again, it goes back to the parenting. Y'all have to be able to trust that people in their lives have their best interests. It's a dirty world we live in, and I get it. It's hard to trust. But start taking the time to listen and stop being so defensive all the time and just so pro-child. And stop being so, pro your kid. Like, man, it's really people out here that love them. But until we come together, stop bickering and fighting amongst each other, these kids are going to continue to die. They're going to continue to rob, kill, or whatever. They might lead them into the penitentiary, drug abuse, or whatever, because we're too busy trying to build what we got going that we only pay attention to what's in front of us. And these kids are falling through the cracks. It has to be deeper than practice. It has to be deeper than the game. Like, even with my kids, I text them and call them, or they at my house, once a week. I'm texting them or something outside of practice. Hey, little big head boy, you know what I'm saying, or something. Like, I'm trying to always interact with them to let them know that this is a family thing. A lot of times I go to practice and I see the kids who aren't good enough to make your starting five and who just are signed up on your team, whether it's football or basketball, they fall through the cracks. Not only they're not getting any playing time, they don't get any attention. And, we have to remember that every child that's a part of our organization is important. The thing about Little League football is I get it. Once they turn 12, they age out. But my biggest thing is, and I'm not talking to any particular coach, talking to every coach. My thing is, if you're going to claim them as being kids that played in your organization and they're in college now, what are you doing between the ages of 13 and 17? You get what I'm saying? We have to be active in these kids' life. And I get it. You got your own life. You got your own life. You got your own job, your kids, and time. I get it. I'm not disagreeing with you. But if we all come together and implement some things that would benefit these athletes as far as like long term, even when they do age out of our programs or whatever, these kids will be better off. Man, think about how many youth coaches we got between football and basketball. Let's just keep it football and basketball. Regardless of what sport you coach, you still a man. We're still considered mentors. So there's no reason that we can't come together and split shifts and do whatever we need to do and come together in some type of program that can keep our kids engaged and locked in year round. But we have to figure it out. But nobody wants to have that conversation. It's too many power trips, too many, I got to be doing this, I got to be doing that. It's crazy. So I don't know, man. I just look at how people, I always want to have the longest status. Though I was the closest to this kid status, but nobody actually want to put in the work to prevent these kids from dying. You get what I'm saying? So we just have to do better, man. I don't know what it is, but one thing I do know is we'll figure it out if we all can just come together and figure it out. I want to sit down with city officials, see what money is available, or any church or whatever, with other coaches, youth mentors, youth leaders, pastors, whatever, and figure out what programs can we implement in different sections of the city to attract these kids and talk to them about gang prevention, respect, etiquette, just everything, preparing them for college and all this. Because I don't care what none of y'all say, man. Education is education. I don't care if the book a little raggeder than a newer book. As long as you can read it, it's like, man, just go to school and get your education. You get what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. But fine, if we sit down with these kids and realize that they 16, 17 and school is not for them, cool. Enroll them in the GED program and send them into a trade school. It's simple. But these kids cannot know what to do or what's in front of them if they're not aware of it and they weren't introduced to it. We have to get out of it. Like, I don't knock nobody who do that once a year, 1 day thing where we teach them how to change oil and do a necktie. That's cool. I can appreciate that. But man, it's still 364 more days left. You get what I'm saying? Like, all that just look good on paper. Like, the organization did that. But not knocking it, because we need that. But how can we figure out to do it every weekend, rather each organization take a turn to do it? We just support them. What else I was gonna say? Tournament directors. We gotta come together. If y'all would come together and make basketball and football a better experience, people would take it more serious. But what happens is, until Arkansas creates a circuit and changes the culture of basketball, kids will continuously get developed late, and Arkansas will not be a basketball state. Nobody can name to me more than three tournaments or two. I'm just being modest and saying three that attracts real basketball coaches. Like, real deal. I mean, when I say real, I mean like big name coaches here in Arkansas. So my point is, when you don't have a circuit here in Arkansas, only the kids who play for the big organizations will get some type of spotlight. So cool, if we create a circuit in Arkansas, only if it'll attract D3 and D2 coaches, it still benefit our kids because it's a realistic thing. Like, oh, cool. Okay, I didn't make the All Reds or the ISO Joes or the Hawks or whatever. But if I still play, I just use my organization. If I still play for TTA and they're competing on the Arkansas circuit, and I know 2 or 3 tournaments out of the year, D2 is going to be flooded with D2 and D3 coaches or JUCO, I still can make it. But it's either this or bust when it comes to Arkansas. And yes, there's exceptions to everything. Yes, I understand that your son or daughter might have didn't play for this particular organization. There's always going to be exceptions. But we're talking about creating a culture to where kids are going to want to take this serious, and we can start getting them in the gym earlier, and parents to take it serious to get them in the gym earlier, and we can start competing to get these free education spots for these kids. But Arkansas is behind. So when you start talking about a state that's not really deemed a basketball state, then that's why you'll start seeing these fourth and fifth grade teams who still walking and doubling, and it's pretty much a circus. One thing I notice is one thing about Arkansas is always gonna be a personal gain or a personal interest going on. If people ain't making money from it, hey man, they ain't tripping. I help here and there, but it's always gonna be some personal gain attached to it. And I'm not trying to necessarily knock people. And all I'm saying is, that's just the culture of the state. When you go to any other basketball state and you start playing a third grade team, they'll beat our fifth grade team straight up. Straight up. It's a culture. Kids inspired when they're as kids to be the next something in their state. Like they gonna pick up their ball. They can go to certain facilities and gyms at 24 hours or 18 hours out the day. 12 hours out the day and go hoop. The gyms are free, multi-courts, all that good thing. But it go back to the city. We have to have some type of facilities to where it's free, it's open. There's instructors who's getting paid to work there, and it's really about mentoring and training. But it's not a culture state. Like that's not our culture. Coaches don't even recruit like that in the state of Arkansas. For what? So then when you say, it ain't too many tall people in Little Rock or it's a lot of tall kids around here. But the problem is the culture is not designed for kids, especially just kids, period. Kids don't fall in love with basketball quick enough. So then if don't nobody find them in these little peewee leagues, and then when you try to find them at 7th and 8th grade, they nerds or they don't care about basketball. Because I see plenty of tall kids walking around here. But we missed the mark with them. You get what I'm saying? So when it's not in our culture for kids to want to play sports like that, then boom, when you don't find them and you don't see them, and then by the time they hit 7th, 8th grade, they don't want to play no ball. Like I could never even think about doing that, man. Like, it's over. So then you find coaches fighting and bickering over the same 2 or 3 kids around here. Our grassroots programs suck. There isn't any. You got, pipeline, should I say. There isn't a structure for grassroots. But you got different programs who fighting now to get it going because they trying to get on these shoe circuits. But the overall structure of it is not good. Man, when I went to Wichita, Kansas, within 5 minutes of each other, you had 10 courts in one gym and 8 courts in the other. It blew my mind. If the city of Little Rock builds one more gym with 2 courts in it, man, there'll be big news. They'll swear up and down they did something. But that's not how that works. It's crazy. We have to do better. Our kids need us. We're some intentionally and some unintentionally are being neglected. The world is about money now. We in trouble. Kids don't even want to work no more. I'm just looking at the kids who are actually get involved in things that never in a million years would have happened back in the day. It's slowly, and I take that back, it's rapidly shifting to the point to where if we don't hurry up and do something about it and implement different things, we are in trouble. I'm just tired of seeing these young people die. And there's not too many role models out there or people for them to follow in the steps that we would want them to follow in. Social media is crazy. Parents, teachers, city officials, AAU coaches, tournament directors, program directors. I'm saying if we can just find a way to put our egos together and come together and really do something about this, that would be great. But I feel like I'm speaking to sports people now. I feel like too many people are trying to worry about building what they got going, that they realizing that here in a little while, it won't be too much left. I'm just telling you, If you look at girls basketball, it's slowly declining. Girls basketball, I mean, you got the Mavericks, and I see Ro Johnson making some noise, and I think the Banshees doing their thing in our vision, and maybe the Rebels. But man, if you're looking at girls basketball, it's just declining. It's declining. Girls are switching over to volleyball and softball at a rapid rate. You know, they don't like to be pushed hard anymore. I mean, it's just a culture. Even boys basketball. I mean, it's, you know, I don't know, man. You know, it's crazy. I'm seeing a lot of organizations fighting over the same kids, and every year I'm watching kids play for different organizations. So I don't know, parents. We have to do better. We have to do better. You have to remember, we're no longer living in our era. We're no longer living in an era to where people, like I said, people can pick up the slack and help you with, you know, we're no longer there. So man, all I ask is that, man, if you're watching this, please, reach out. Let's try to figure this out and do something, because, man, our kids are dying. They're dying. They're dying fast. It's sad to say that it's a lot of brand new pair of Jordans and clothes and stuff that's being bought in vain. Your hard-earned money just for your son to get killed the next day, or going to, like, I know you didn't invest it to lose your child, or before they even see the NBA. Like, you have to realize what's going on. So parents, I mean, I would love to have a big seminar, a coaching seminar, and figuring out how we can do this, even meeting with the parents. Let's start talking about expectations and start moving as a unit. Because like I said, you can get all the Super Bowl trophies you want. You can get all the AAU tournaments and all the shoe circuit deals you want. But, man, at the end of the day, you know, if these kids are getting killed and shot up and going to the penitentiary, what good did we do? Because we always tell our kids when they're little that this is bigger than basketball. And somewhere down the line, as they get older, it's not bigger than basketball. It only becomes about basketball. So we, as coaches, mentors, and stuff like that, we have to start living up to that. Because our kids have to be more to us than how many games they can win, and will there be another number on who went to the NBA? You get what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna make this longer, man. As always, I appreciate everything y'all do to support the love and just, you know, everything y'all do for us, man. So hey, man, it's Coach E. And, man, just, you know, pray for our community, man. You know, it's sad out here, man. These kids, they dying. And it ain't even funny, man. Like, these kids dying doing some hardcore stuff. You feel what I'm saying? But yeah, man, as always, I love y'all, man. And I want y'all to remember one thing. I'm not just asking for y'all to get these kids right and help them get them right as a coach or as a mentor. I'm asking you too, because one day my kids gonna be out there interacting with these kids, and I don't want my kids to be a victim. You know, I love my kids to death, and just imagine and just think about your kids being out there being in the world with these kids. When I was 19, 20, yeah, you know, it was gangs and stuff around, and we thought, you know, we knew how to navigate around it, but, you know, the respect thing was in place. So, you know, as long as we knew you didn't disrespect nobody, and you know, you was good, we was partying, kicking it, just having a good time. Now 18, 19, 15, 14-year-old, you know, you know, it's too many elements to it, man. Like, they don't even get to enjoy life anymore. You know, I never at 14 and 15 just ever thought, like, you know, I could die anywhere, anytime. And it's just like, man, do you want your kids to be in that environment? Think of how good of a job you raising your kids, and they have to go out here in this world and interact with these kids. So, man, this is more than just me coming to you as a coach, as a, you know, as a mentor, or a guy on the podcast. I'm also begging as a father. You know, please give my kids an opportunity to live and be able to smile and enjoy themselves as they're teenagers. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you can't even go get gas no more. You get what I'm saying? You know, that's all I'm asking, man. But hey, I'm Coach E. I'm signing out.